Late Wednesday night, the Supreme Court broke its silence on allowing the Texas abortion law to go into effect. They had already basically allowed it to happen, but now they wanted to put it in writing. The vote was 5-4. Chief Justice John Roberts joined the minority of the 3 liberal justices. 3 of the 5 justices in the majority were appointed by Donald Trump: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. The majority, they hid behind procedure. The procedure wasn't proper, they said, in terms of the filing to stop this law from going into effect. The filing wasn't appropriate. Does anyone actually think that if this law was threatening capital or was dangerous to moneyed interests in any way, that they would have gotten hung up on procedure? I think not. But this is where they choose to do it, in a nod to anti-abortion activists who have been putting pressure on the apolitical Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So as a reminder about this law, the Texas law bans abortion after 6 weeks, which is essentially a complete abortion ban. 85 to 90% of abortions in Texas happen after those 6 weeks, according to the New York Times. The legal threshold set by Roe is 22 to 24 weeks. So if you're the Supreme Court and you already know that that is the law, and this is what you're choosing to rule on, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Another egregious part of this Texas law is that it essentially creates a bounty system for regular private citizens who don't need to live in Texas or prove any standing, meaning prove any harm or injury caused by someone's abortion, which I don't even know what that would be, what harm you would be would be caused to you, especially if you think abortion is murder of the fetus. You would think that was the harm being caused to the fetus, but regardless, what it really is designed to do is open the door for right-wing groups who have a lot of money to sue these abortion providers. And they get $10,000 and their legal fees entirely covered under this law in Texas for free if they win. They get their legal fees entirely covered and $10,000. So they're creating an incentive program for people to completely decimate these abortion providers and sue them out of existence. And also just go after doctors. Here's a quote from the New York Times piece on this, which was very extensive. They spoke with Dr. Jessica Rubino. She's a doctor at a clinic in Austin Women's Health Center. And she says, if this was a criminal ban, we'd know what to do, or we'd know what this is and what we can and cannot do. But this ban has civil implications. It requires a lawyer to go to court. It requires lawyers' fees. And then $10,000 if we don't win. What happens if everybody is sued, not just me? My staff is nervous. They've been asking, what about our families? Because yes, you could go after staff at these clinics, nurses, people aiding and abetting an abortion. That's what this insane law states. This insane, obvious law, obviously unconstitutional law, unconstitutional in many ways, including that standing aspect. You can't just sue. Anybody and everybody can't just sue based on abortions being provided. You have to prove injury. But the Supreme Court decided they didn't feel the need to stop this law from going into effect. And by the way, doctors are required to report every lawsuit filed against them when renewing licenses or applying for hospital admission privileges. So this will hurt doctors in terms of their record. With all of that said, here is Jen Psaki responding to this and saying what Biden will or will not do about what's happening right now.
Obviously, in Texas, with the law with regard to abortion, the president said in a statement he will protect and defend Roe versus Wade. How does the administration plan to do that?
Well, we put out a statement from the president this morning, but let me just reiterate some of the key points, and I will, of course, answer your question. As the president said this morning, this extreme Texas law blatantly violates the constitutional right established under Roe v. Wade and upheld as precedent for nearly half a century. It will significantly impair women's access to the health care they need, particularly for communities of color and individuals with low incomes. It also deputizes private citizens to bring lawsuits against anyone who they believe has helped another person get an abortion, which might even include family members, healthcare workers, front desk staff at a healthcare clinic, or strangers with no connection to the individuals. This further isolates individuals who are facing this tough choice. And I would note, for those of you who didn't see, people who report, who for these private citizens could get up to $10,000 for reporting somebody who's seeking an abortion. So our focus and the president's focus is to reiterate our deep commitment to the constitutional right, of course, established by Roe v. Wade nearly 5 decades ago, and to continue to call for the codification of Roe, something that the president talked about on the campaign trail, the vice president talked about on the campaign trail, and this highlights even further the need to move forward on that effort.
Right. And everything she says there is true, and a reiteration of kind of what I explained about this insane Texas law. But the solution is a nonsensical one, because the White House is not pushing for filibuster reform. Without filibuster reform, this is one of the many things that cannot happen, Roe v. Wade being enshrined into law. The solution is something that the Biden administration will never, ever touch. The solution is expand the court. The solution is expand the court. The number of justices on the Supreme Court is not in the Constitution. It has changed multiple times throughout history. I believe at least 5 times it's changed. Don't quote me on that. But it has changed multiple times in this country's history. And similarly to the number of representatives in the House of Representatives, that used to change by population until it was arbitrarily stopped at the start of the 20th century. We could change the number of Supreme Court justices, because you want to know who isn't playing by the rules? It's the Republican Party. If the justices can do this for abortion, they can do this for every progressive policy priority. I'm talking Medicare for all. That's a significant danger. If we want, as progressives, for that to be kind of our gold standard of policy to achieve in the next years and the coming years, and make sure that we are organized behind that effort, the Supreme Court is an enormous obstacle for that remaining as law, because this isn't going away. I want to read this quote from Sotomayor's dissent to underscore why this is necessary, because this isn't going to change. These are lifetime appointments. The court's order is stunning. Presented with an application to enjoin a flagrantly unconstitutional law engineered to prohibit women from exercising their constitutional rights and evade judicial scrutiny, a majority of justices have opted to bury their heads in the sand. Well, this is just who they are. The court has rewarded the state's effort to delay federal review of a plainly unconstitutional statute enacted in disregard of the court's precedents through procedural entanglements of the state's own creation. Yeah, they rewarded Texas for creating these blatantly illegal obstacles that are meant to do just this, to destroy abortion providers and anybody who aids and abets an abortion, and already just cut off the ability for a great majority of women to have an abortion. And this is also a design for other states to follow suit, and the Supreme Court just gave them the green light to do that.
I would recommend Matt Karp's piece, How Abraham Lincoln Fought the Supreme Court in Jacobin, because, I think court packing is great. And if we could get Democrats on board with it, I'd love that. We have to, I think, fundamentally just get rid of the concept of judicial review in general. If Congress passes a law like Obamacare, it's constitutional. And this extra BS from these, robed freaks,
yeah,
they just should not have the importance that they do in our country. If Congress votes something in, it's in.
I couldn't agree more. But in terms of realistic solutions for the next few years, I don't see abolishing the Supreme Court as something that's going to happen. But I agree in terms of the makeup of judicial review and the body in and of itself. So in terms of long term, Matt, I'm on board. But in terms of something the Democrats can adopt, we see Mondaire Jones. He's talking about expanding the court. There's got to be more momentum behind this.
Yeah, I hope so. I just think my problem is those, they seem about even now. Okay, we have some Democrats doing it, but leadership, like you said, they're not going to touch us with a 10-foot pole. So it's also not really a short term.
So then to bring it back to Jen Psaki. Okay, cool. Then talk about filibuster reform. If that's the one, like, if you are serious about enshrining Roe in law, there is only one path. So get serious about it or stop opining, because I don't want to hear it.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.